Hey guys, today I'm going to take you through a project that we've been working on for a really long time, and it's inspired by none other than Gendy Tartakovsky's Primal. I started off by putting together a mood board from screen caps of the show, and then I narrowed it down to the exact references that I'll be using for the scenes that I had kind of planned out. So all of these were supposed to help me ideally go through the style and understand how the textures had been applied to different sort of situations. These are the storyboards that I started off with. There is a longer version that I plan to do, but since it never came to life, it'll be on our Patreon with all the other BTS and unaired projects. If you saw Blender Brushes video, you would have seen this test that I did using the brush pack to mimic the style of the backgrounds. I didn't want to just be inspired by the show. I wanted to be able to study the style and make something that actually looked like at least a fraction of what the show is in its finality. If you haven't watched it, you guys should. It's on Adult Swim and is amazing. So after that, it was time to lay down my roughs. This is what they look like at the start of this project. What you'll find as a common theme is it kept evolving and growing, and I added more scenes and more details to it. So it gets a little hectic, and there is no linear timeline for all these changes. So this is what I started off with, and this is kind of a look into the process of animating. It's very tedious, and hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of how time consuming it really is and all the tiny minute changes that go into each of the little frames along the way to building the full animation. Here's another scene that came out of nowhere. I decided to add one final section that could probably add a little bit more context to what's going on. For this scene, I used a couple of references of dog run cycles. Here are the images that I referenced while working on it. I couldn't really find anything for a wolf, but that's essentially what I had to guide me. Then I turn up the smoothing factor on my stroke settings and start lining. This process too is super tedious. It helps to go into a little bit of a dissociative state where you just zone out and retrace lines you've already drawn before, but neater, I guess. So this is what it looks like in high speed. Here are a couple of the backgrounds I drew. Lining these at this point was a lot more interesting for me now because I had looked through quite a lot of the show's backgrounds and really understood how the environment artists had studied foliage and the tropics, which this was sort of set in. So this part was a little interesting, a lot more interesting than lining the girl, I believe. And for the final scene that I added out of nowhere, I had a lot of freedom to lay out the background as I wanted. As you can see, I added a lot of detail to the foreground, but then left the background a little as almost silhouette shapes, just so that it didn't take away and get too cluttered from what's going on in the foreground action, essentially. So this is what it looked like when I started lining the wolf. I add a little time lapse here for you guys if you're interested in seeing how these little details come to life. But essentially, it's the same old frame by frame pipeline, just lining and drawing and sketching as neatly as you can. I had the most fun doing the background for the first scene. After I had added in the leaf, I realized that I had a lot of ground to fill, and I mostly freehanded all of this stuff. I hope it's interesting for you guys to look at. It really was tantamount to how much I had been staring at screen caps from the show, because it became really easy after a while to sort of predict what kind of backgrounds might fit into the Primal universe. I stayed mostly to the tropical leafy ones. As you can see, I don't have much variation there, but I think this was my favorite stage of the project. And here is the final animation. I did a little bit of value study so that you guys could have an idea of what it might look like after it's done, but we haven't got anywhere close to starting the coloring, and I hope it's something that we can get into soon. If you guys like looking through this project as much as I liked working on it, we do have a Patreon now where you guys can support us. There are two tiers. One is just for support, and the other is for looking into BTS and unaired projects like this one, which our Patreons got to see a little earlier than when this video actually came out. It would mean the world to us if you guys were able to support, and it would also free up more time for us to work on passion projects like this and show you guys the end result for the Primal video. So A really quick thank you to our current patrons. We have 6 of you, and it's awesome. Thank you so much to everybody who's supporting us. And as always, project files and assets are up on our website, and we'll see you guys later with our next tutorial. Deuces.